Good evening, students. Adele from UNISA. While we're waiting on Charles, who's just finishing up in a meeting, could you kindly please post your student numbers in the chat in the meantime? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys had a wonderful day. Please post your student numbers in the chat section. I will join the meeting in 5 minutes time, just waiting for more students to join the session. Just another friendly request to please make sure that your student number is copied into the chat section. It is very important for the continuation of these sessions to make sure that all students post their student numbers, doesn't matter from what province you are, because we need to use that for attendance purposes. Thank you.
So I've got 2 out of the 3 girls at the table that have.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start the session. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure that you've copied in your student number into the chat section. It is very important for us to know who took part in this class, and the way we do that is by monitoring the student numbers in the chat section. So very important for you to please copy your student number into the chat section. And then on the screen, you will see there's a WhatsApp group for AUE2602. If you want to be part of that module, you can just send me your name and the module code, because I host various modules through UNISA. So you have to send me your name and the module code to that number over WhatsApp, and I will add you to the group. Solutions, session notes, and other communication will be made on this WhatsApp group. So it's very important for you to be part of it if you want to. It is a voluntary WhatsApp group. As I'm just going to unshare my screen quickly and put up the relevant material. So the first part of this session was basically to do an overview of what you learned during the semester and what they can ask for in the exam, and what is important for you to focus on, and how they will ask it. Basically, I do not set the exams. I just give you practical guides as opposed to how they can ask it. And as you know, most of the questions nowadays are multiple choice questions, since you're doing it online. So do not underestimate multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions are set up in such a way that you will almost doubt yourself. In other words, you really need to have a very good understanding of the principle that's being examined, especially if you look at the first part of your study guide, where we talk about corporate governance and code of conduct, statutory matters. There they will test your knowledge, so that you really need to understand and know what it says, because you will be given scenarios where you will have to apply what you've learned. So that's also very important. Make sure that when you study, do not just study to memorize the content. Study it to be able to give a practical interpretation thereof. So you must understand it, know it, and understand it. Those two things need to go together. You do not just cram it in and don't think of what is actually being said here. So very important. Just hold on for me. Let me quickly put up the screen. I'm basically just going to make a few notes on what is important. And I will be focusing mostly on content this evening, with questions during our next session. For the delay. Okay. Any questions before we start the general discussion? Any questions? Okay, let's start. Rafika, can I just ask you to confirm the study date for us, after the exam date?
Hi, Charles. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can, yes.
Hello? Okay.
I can hear you.
Sorry, the exam date is on Wednesday, the 18th at 3.
So I've got it. Okay. Okay, so the first chapter, corporate governance, as I've already explained, extremely important in understanding the application thereof. If we look at the King 4 report, very topical at the moment. We are seeing lots of companies in South Africa being negatively affected due to the lack of implementation of the principles that's listed within the King Code, the corporate governance, etc. So think of companies that you've been reading in the headlines of our newspapers as well as individuals that have been found guilty of these things. And that makes it very topical because of the number of people that is being negatively affected when these regulations and these codes are being contravened. So be very sure that you can interpret these rules and in a practical way apply them, because that's how they will ask it specifically in a multiple choice exam. So in a multiple choice exam, make sure that you understand the process of elimination. Read every sentence, every statement that's given, and first eliminate those that you know for a fact is wrong. And you will find that there are in most cases, there are 2 that you will doubt. And that's where you need to understand the content very well, because 2 of the items that are given for you to choose from will be very close, but only 1 will be accurate. So that's where they will test, do you really understand and do you really know what's going on in that various section. Then moving on to internal, so the first part, corporate governance, that's study. There's no real explanation that I can assist with there. You need to understand the content, study it, and be able to differentiate where two statements are given, and which one is more accurate than the other. You must be able to do that definition or differentiation when you study that section. Moving on to internal control, which is topic 2 in your study guide. You must be very well versed in the various components of internal control. That is something that came over from your first module, your AUE2601. Understand those components and why they are there. It's very important that you do understand that. Are there any questions on internal control specific? Guys, remember this is your section and session, and you need to be open to discuss. I can only assist with what you are struggling if I know what it is that you are struggling with. Otherwise, I'm just going to carry on, go through the study guide, and make sure that there are no questions as we move along.
If I may, I'm quite struggling with the assertions.
100%. Okay, so let's move on to the... Everybody okay that we discuss the assertions first?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I really need some interaction. Okay, so as you guys know, auditing is at 2 levels. There's financial statement level. So on the annual financial statements, so that's your big balances, your main balances. And then obviously there is transactions. And they each have various items that we need to verify and get support an audit evidence or collect audit evidence to be able to express an opinion on the on that various the correct treatment of that transaction and the balance as well. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there are 5 assertions. That is the main ones that you will be confronted with, and you will be required to understand which of those are applicable to what line item. So we are talking about existence and completeness first. So here you will have to think about the direction of audit procedures. In other words, tests to collect audit evidence. So say, for instance, for an example, if you want to audit inventory, you will collect an inventory list from the financial director or financial manager or the relevant stock controller. That list will obviously support my annual financial statements because there's an inventory balance on my AFs that I would like to corroborate. I want to test the accuracy thereof. So to do that, we need to look at the various assertions that's applicable. And one of the 2 major ones, if you specifically look at assets and, for instance, inventory, is existence and completeness. What does existence mean? It means that the items on that list, on my asset list, on my fixed asset list, on my inventory list, that they really exist. In other words, if I select a sample from that list, I should be able to find them in my storeroom, on the floor, or wherever that asset is located. That means I test the existence of assets on that list. When I talk about completeness, on the other hand, there I will change the direction of my testing, and I will actually start on the floor. You will walk around at your client's premises, and you will select an asset or an item of inventory, and you will trace that item to the list that you've obtained. In other words, you are testing that that list is complete, that all items are on that list. Staying with it, with inventory, for instance, let's move over to valuation. So here we are talking about what? About what are we talking here?
If it's the correct carry amount in the financial statements.
Yeah, measurement. And what does the measurement say? You need to apply the correct international financial reporting standard. So say, for instance, we stick with inventory. You need to apply ISA 2 very accurately because it speaks there, for instance, inventory must be shown at the lower of cost or net realizable value. So you will test inventory to make sure that the value that it is shown at is accurate. Rights and obligations. Is the inventory really mine? In other words, remember the moment that you purchase assets or you purchase inventory, there's a specific date at which you become the owner of the property, the date at which risk and rewards transfer from the seller to the buyer. So you will test to make sure that the inventory that is on that list should actually be on that list. In other words, you will test for things like goods in transit. The goods that's on their way to your premises, did risk and rewards already transfer? Did I include it? So there I will both test completeness and rights and obligations. Any questions so far?
No questions, Charles.
Okay, then we have presentation and disclosure. So presentation and disclosure, the big thing there is that you must make sure that we disclose everything that we need to disclose. In other words, information that will change the decision making of the users of the financial statements. All those disclosures need to be taken into account. So if something will affect the decision that the users of financial statements will make, it must be shown in the correct manner prescribed by IFRS. And it's important to note, because I know one of the things that's very difficult, or not difficult, but that can confuse students and other people as well, with regards to assertions, is which assertions are applicable to which line item. So I need to make this note that each line in the financial statements contain all assertions. However, the risk of misstatement for each assertion will vary according to the type of account. In other words, some assertions are more applicable to certain items on the annual financial statements than others. So that's why the question will sometimes say, test the assertions for assets versus the assertions for liabilities, because the risk of misstatement for each of those items differ. If you think about assets, what is my main risk for assets? If you think of the fact that a bank will use my financial statements to make a decision on whether or not to grant the client a loan, they will use the financial statements. So what is the risk on assets? Overstatement?
Overstatement.
Definitely overstatement. The same with revenue. It will be overstatement. Liabilities will be understatement. So it's important that you understand that, because assertions are really the, how can I put it, the characteristics that we need to test to ensure that the financial statements are correct and appropriate for users to use to make decisions. So if assertions are all, let's say, met, when you look at the relevant transactions or the balances and the financial statements, users should be in a position to make that decision, and you all should be able to be in a position to express an opinion on the financial statements that will further support the decision that the client will make, or that the users of the financial statements will make. Everybody happy with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you look at auditing, there are basically, say, 3 categories. If you look at auditing assertions, we will have account balances, we will have classes of transactions, And then obviously we will look at the AFS itself. And if I say the annual financial statements, the main risk there is presentation and disclosure. Everybody happy? So on account balances, what will be my assertions?
Existence.
Definitely. Completeness.
Valuation.
And the last one we already spoke about.
Rights and obligation.
Rights and obligation.
Rights and obligations. If we go to classes of transaction, what is very important there?
Occurrence.
Did it happen? Occurrence.
Accuracy.
Cutoff.
Definitely, that's the one I was looking for now, because cutoff and occurrence goes together a lot, because occurrence, did it happen? And cutoff is to make sure that we have recorded everything in the correct financial period. Cutoff. So sticking with that, we also will say completeness.
Yes.
And then probably the main one under transactions is classification.
Classification.
What does the classification assertion say? We are basically saying that all transactions have been recorded
In
the
their proper
correct
accounts.
because we need to use the correct account, because the correct account goes to that account goes to eventually, together with other accounts, to the trial balance, and the trial balance is used to set up the financial statements. Okay, so very important. Okay, let's go to presentation and disclosure. So there we will also test for occurrence. We will test classification. And then accuracy. Everybody happy so far? Any questions that you would like us to unpack? Okay, let's do a few questions. And this is from your study guide and some other material. So I'm just using the examples that you have been exposed to as a reminder or review. I'm going to mention a risk. So I'm going to give you a risk. And then staying with internal controls that I started with, and then we had the question from Charlize to talk about the assertion. Let's combine those two. Let's talk about risks. What is a risk? A risk is something that might go wrong. We look at the business that the client is in. We look at the specific section of the business. And then we say all these things can go wrong. That is why a very detailed risk assessment is vital. because a risk assessment classifies the company's risks. It identifies the risks first of all, and then there's a classification that occurs, a prioritization, where we say these risks are most likely to happen, but then we also evaluate the impact. So we assess the likelihood of it happening as well as the impact on the business. And if both the likelihood is high and the impact on the business is high, then obviously that risk needs to be prioritized. We need to develop internal controls to make sure that that risk does not materialize, that the company is not exposed to that risk, or is the risk that the exposure to that risk is minimalized. So that's very important to understand what a risk is. So if I say, let's talk about, let's stay with inventory, and we say, what is one of the biggest risks for inventory? Misappropriation. In other words, it's used for unauthorized sales or fraud or theft. So let's say goods removed from the warehouse. What would be an internal control to guard the company?
Having a security guard so that no one would go with the inventory.
Sorry, I just want to put my volume up a bit. Can you just repeat that for me?
I say by having a security guard so that nobody can go out with inventory.
Definitely. But so let's say safety. But remember, in auditing, I'm going to stick with that answer. Let's say security. What must that security take it now a step back? So say, for instance, put yourself in the shoes. We are talking internal controls. So put yourself in the shoes of that security guard or whoever we put there to check. So in comes someone, that person selects a few items from the warehouse and leaves. So now the security guard jumps up and he says, no, you can't. What will convince him that you are allowed to leave? Because there we are heading towards the real internal control. Because remember, that security guard can't just stop, because then he might actually also stop authorized sales, which will have another detrimental effect. And the way I'm discussing this answer doesn't mean the answer was wrong. Is we auditing sometimes let us give very broad answers, and then when we get our papers back, we didn't get the marks that we thought we would. So it's very important to make sure that you've really touched the root of the problem and think about the practicality. So the security guard was definitely not a bad idea, because we want to make sure that our stock is secure. So what will make the security guard say, yes, you can take the stock?
A dispatch note.
Hello. Okay. Hello.
What was that?
Invoice. Can I mention something?
Yes, please.
I think it will be best if there's a senior manager and junior manager who are involved for authorizing that transaction for goods to go out.
Or a dispatch note.
Yes, you guys are mentioning all very valid things, but what's the key word there? So these things aren't wrong,
Invoice.
and you would have got
Invoice. The goods must be attached with the relevant invoice.
100%. We call that a picking slip. So how does a picking slip work? Let's think about Takealot. You sit at your computer and you purchase something from Takealot. Take lot issues an invoice to you because you've paid, you get a receipt, there's an invoice. Now a picking slip is automatically generated. Remember that the person in the warehouse do not need to know what is the value of the items. He just needs to receive a list of items that must be picked, an authorized list. And that we will go to the warehouse, and the warehouse foreman or supervisor, I heard some good responses there, will look at that picking slip and he will say, okay, these things need to go into this, let's say, a basket. And then it will be removed. Now the security guard can say, please give me the picking slip. And the security guard will look at the picking slip and he will say, okay, that item's there, that item, check, everybody signed, the foreman signed the picking slip, and he's happy that it's authorized, and then he can say, okay, you guys can leave. Everybody happy?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's the control.
Yes.
But what will be the assertion here? We will be testing occurrence. Did this really occur? Did the sale occur? Did the picking occur? Was the removal of was it an authorized occurrence? Everybody happy with that example?
Yes.
So let's stay with this take a lot example. Let's say, for instance, the risk. Let's again talk about the risk. Let's say incorrect goods or incorrect quantities. What control will we put in place to make sure that the correct goods is being received or dispatched?
I think when somebody's making maybe a sales order, then the order is being written down.
Yeah.
Before it's taken to a warehouse. And when the sales order when the person is making an order, everything is being written down on the sales order. And once the sales order is complete, there is a the internal sales order, which is being completed, which is going to be taken to the warehouse together. And when they reach the warehouse, they will do a picking slip of those items that were ordered. So it's going to be checked on that sales order and also the picking slip.
Okay, so we marry the order against the picking slip, and I'm saying here order or invoice.
Order.
Needs to create the picking slip. Yes. %. I'm happy. And
Sorry.
let's talk about receipt. Yes.
The stock, is the stock delivered or is the stock to be received? That is incorrect.
So the top one I set receipt, and the bottom one I set sale.
Okay.
So this is when stock is being sold, and this is when it's being received.
Okay. For the receipt one, I think is a purchase order with the POT, which means it's a delivery note. meaning you have to compare the order, the purchase order with the delivery note to see if it's really what you ordered, what is being delivered.
%. Guys, if you've got any questions, you are welcome to just unmute your mic and ask, okay? I don't always, there's 3 screens open in front of me, so I don't always see if there's a hand up or not. So you can just unmute as everybody is doing. I'm happy with that. Okay, so what is the assertion?
It's accuracy, because you want to make sure that the order is really what's being ordered. You are making sure.
You are absolutely right. The one is definitely accuracy.
And completeness.
And completeness. Yeah.
And completeness.
Okay, so let's pause on the completeness one first. Accuracy for the risk of incorrect quantity. The other one is occurrence. And that's where we look at incorrect goods, because incorrect goods says I didn't receive what I wanted. So did it occur? Did the sale actually occur? Incorrect quantity says we did receive or we did sell what we wanted to, but it wasn't accurately sold. Remember, completeness is to make sure that whatever is in stock is actually there. What we say is in stock is actually there, and whatever is on the floor is actually on the stock list. That's how we test completeness, is that if we walk around in the warehouse and we look at items in the warehouse, we should be able to find it on our stock list. That test is for completeness. Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What would be the difference with existence then? Between existence and completeness?
Existence is the other way around.
It's a balance.
So completeness is where we test from the floor to the theoretical quantity. So you walk around, so let's say you go to a Toyota dealership and you see a Toyota Corolla on the floor. You will take that Toyota Corolla's VIN number, engine number, and whatever other numbers there are, and you will go to the stock controller and ask, can I please see where on your stock list is this specific vehicle that is very specifically identifiable using those numbers? And if he can show you that list, it's proof that it's some proof, because remember, we can't test everything. We give reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, but it's proof that the list is complete. If we go to the list first and we see that here is a Toyota Hilux Bucky, VIN number, engine number, whatever numbers, and now I ask the stock controller, please take me to this Bucky. And he can take me to that Bucky, then it means that asset really exists. The list we've tested existence, that whatever we say that is on the list actually exists. Completeness is where we go to the floor to make sure that that list that we are testing, it is actually complete. So we are looking for assets from the floor to the list. Does that make sense? So from the list to the floor is existence. Does it exist? The system says it exists. Does it really exist? From the floor to the system will be completeness. Did we account for everything?
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
If I can ask you something,
Yes.
I usually get confused between the transactions and account balances assertions. So, for example, you spoke about the inventory. You said the incorrect goods or the incorrect quantity was accuracy. So, yeah, I would have checked under account balances because inventory is an account balance. So yeah, that's actually making me confused.
Okay, let's stick with that quickly. Remember, you can either audit classes of transactions or you can audit account balances. So if I audit inventory, it means I go to this section and I go look at inventory and I test for those assertions. Now I am being given transactions. Actual transactions, goods that's removed, incorrect goods ordered, incorrect goods dispatched. That's a transaction. So that's not here. That's a transaction. And so I will look for those assertions.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
I think if we can take it this way, if you are making a sale, you are doing a transaction, then you are going to check under the classes of a transaction, that is the occurrence and accuracy. You are
Definitely.
making a sale. But when you are making an order, that is, you are receiving the stock. So you will be checking other account balances. It's like when you are doing your financial statements, that is where you are making a sale under a statement of profit or loss and other income, then it's gonna be under the transactions. Then when we are receiving the stock, like you order something, then it's gonna be under your inventory and it's gonna be under your account balances. Then that's where you check existence and completeness.
Sorry, may I make it clear? Maybe I don't know if I'm wrong or what, but I think in this case it's purchases, and purchases it's an income statement item, which I think then Itlova is gonna be income statement assertions.
Well, that's what's making me confused because it's a purchase that is actually an expense, but it's also an asset purchase. So that's why I don't know what type of where I must look at.
But purchases of inventory, it's cost of sales. Like when you calculate the cost of sales, you're gonna say your opening inventory plus the purchases less the closing to get your cost of sales, which is an income statement account. Therefore, I will say purchases, it's classes of transaction, not an account balance.
Okay, I have it like that then. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys heard what I said in the beginning.
So I understand it better now. Yes.
Okay. So if I audit an account balance, so if I go to my financial statements and I want to audit an amount on the financial statements, I'm looking at an account balance. But in this case, we drilled down to a specific transaction. And if we want to test that, if we want to test if that transaction is accurate, we will look at, did it really happen? Is it accurate? Cutoff, does it fall in the correct period? Complete, is it complete? That we look at everything, is everything included? And then did we classify it correctly? Okay.
Guys, can you then just maybe give some examples for the account balances as well?
Our time is going to run out, so I'm going to do one more example in terms of on the internal control and transaction level. And then in our next session, we will then focus again on assertions, another section, but then more account balances. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's split it like that. Let's do a final example. Let's say I ordered something on Takealot, and they dispatched it to me, but they never invoiced it. So the risk of something being dispatched without being invoiced. So the risk is dispatched without being invoiced. What will be the control?
They must issue an invoice.
Okay, so we look for numerical sequence. In invoicing. And goods cannot leave without a delivery note matched with the invoice. And if that happens, it means we have successfully confirmed the assertion of completeness. Everybody happy?
Hi, Charles.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to ask Annie, the numerical sequences in invoicing. What does it really mean in terms of it's like when you are invoicing, Annie, you have invoice number 442, 443, 44. Is that the sequence?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then how are you going to be able to pick up if something it was not invoiced but it was dispatched?
Because you will miss an invoice number.
Yes.
So one invoice number will be missing. You will skip that invoice because it was automatically reserved for that transaction, but it wasn't assigned. Now you go over to the next transaction and there's immediately a blank.
Okay. Is it always a case in terms of the invoice is always reserved for something?
Just say again, there's a bit of noise.
Okay, I'm saying, Annie, is always the invoice reserved for delivery note or for something?
Just repeat your question again. Sorry, I can't hear you properly. Someone is making a not muted. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm asking if is the invoice number is always been reserved. That's why you'll be able to pick up if there is a missing invoice that was supposed to be issued.
If you are using a system-based software, definitely, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Charles.
100%, guys. Guys, I have to unfortunately move over to a new session. Please make sure I'm going to put up the WhatsApp number again on the screen. Make sure that you send me your name and module code to that number, and then I can attend to questions that you might have. As well as I'm going to post a session evaluation form in the chat section. I would really appreciate it if you guys can complete that form for me. We would love to hear your feedback. I'll post that now momentarily. And then lastly, please make sure that you've posted your student number in the chat section. It is extremely important that we have a complete record of who took part in the session And that's for planning purposes as well.
Sorry. I
Yes.
don't have. I can't write in the chat room. Like my messages aren't sending.
Then you can post it in the WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Just send me a WhatsApp. Was in tonight's session. This is my student number, but send it to me
Okay,
outside the group. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
100%.
Sorry, Charles, I just wanted to ask.
Yes.
Do you have another lesson for 2601?
Yes, there's a module. There is a WhatsApp group for 2601.
Please give us the
I
lesson.
am there, but then I'm asking, I haven't seen when next we're going to have a lesson since we are writing on Saturday.
We are trying to see if we can maybe schedule one for tomorrow, but unfortunately, there's not enough time to schedule more. So the class will either be, well, if there's a class, it will be tomorrow night.
Okay,
but that
thank
will be
you.
communicated to you so on the WhatsApp group. Guys, I'm posting the session. I'm posting the session evaluation note in the chat section now.
Charles.
All right.
Yes.
Sorry to disturb.
No
Good
problem.
evening.
I can hear you. Good evening.
I wanted to ask for the previous sessions, have you posted the notes that you were busy with, both on this module and AUE2601?
Just repeat your question. There was a bit of noise. I couldn't hear you properly.
I'm saying for this module and AUE2601.
Yes.
Did you already post, what is this, the notes that you were busy with in such sessions? And if yes, could you please resend them on the groups?
Okay, I will do that. Just send me a WhatsApp to ask that, please.
We were talking about.
Yeah, I'm moving into another module now, so just send me a WhatsApp and I will then remember if I'm done tonight.
All right.
100%, yes.
Charles,
Yes, I'm listening.
are you done now?
We are done, yes. I'm moving over to a session for FAC
Boy,
160.
you can't